Hey, can if can anybody hear me? This is like only like my second or third time trying to like live stream with the software with OBS Studio. Okay, cool. Yay. All right. I'm just realizing there's like I love this software OBS Studio. It's kind of great and I don't know if it's technically open source or if it's just free, but I really like it. But I'm like it's like that tech thing where it's like, "Oh, I'll learn it as I use it in front of people live." So cool. Hey, hi. If For those of you who don't know me, I'm Heather Freeman. I'm the host of Magic in the United States. I know a bunch of the folks in this chat right now, so yay! Thanks for not paying full attention to your day jobs and hanging out with me while I try not to burn down the house. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a fast, cheap, and dirty um, uh, why February 1st, February 2nd is kind of an interesting date. And thank you, aw, Justin. And then also fast, cheap, and dirty, my hacker version of making candles. And then if there's time left, I'm assuming there's time left, we'll just like hang out and talk, and I'll be putting out whatever fires and making messes that I make. First, I guess to get started, let's talk a little bit about. I'm just like checking stuff behind me boiling. Let's talk a little bit about. Oh wait, what happened to my images? Oh no! Wait, hold on. Oh, I know what I did. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna go back here. Oh, I see how I did this. I'm so smart. Sorry, I'm like figuring out what I'm doing as I'm doing it. Um, Let me make sure that this is the correct audio device. Okay, here we go. I've got this figured out. All right, and then do you guys see the little graphic in the lower corner? I'm like checking my phone. Is that working? Oh, wait, no, I can see on my phone. There's a slight delay. No, yes. It's a long delay. Oh my gosh. Okay, it's working. Cool. Sorry, that's a long delay, y'all. Now you know. All right. Anyway, Feast of Torches, Imbolc, Groundhog's Day, Candlemas. Like these are all words that get used around February 1st, February 2nd. I'm going to talk about it primarily from the contemporary pagan practitioner perspective. There's a lot of different observations of these dates from a lot of different practices and cultures. So I'm just going to talk about one, but then we can sort of expand out from there, like why that's kind of amazing. So in contemporary paganism, and this is true for other practices besides contemporary paganism, but like I said, I'm just going to talk contemporary paganism right now. In contemporary paganism, uh, the cycle of the wheel of the year is kind of like a big thing. It's a big thing, you guys. When I was trying to explain this to my teenager, I was like, well, you have like the equinoxes and the solstices, and then you have the cross quarter days, and it makes this like wheel. And he's like, what are you talking about? So I'm using graphics to explain it. So let's just start with the spring equinox and the autumn equinox. So those are the times of the year when the daylight and the nighttime are roughly the same duration. And we're thinking northern hemisphere, right? Like northern hemisphere temporal zones is kind of where some of these things emerge from, and I'll get into origins in a second. So if you then think about those equinoxes and expand that out, let me see if I can get this to work. La, la, la. Transition. Oh, I love it. It works. If you add another axis on this, so we have this circle, which is a cycle, the annual cycle, then in between those, you have the summer solstice and the winter solstice. So summer solstice, longest day of the year, winter solstice, longest night of the year. So these are sort of common things, when we think about like places like Newgrange or Stonehenge, we're like, oh yeah, like they're there to observe these solstices and equinoxes or whatever. So in between those, then you have what's called cross quarter days. So I love technology when it's cooperating. Yeah. So in between these, we have cross-quarter days. And the language that gets used to describe them is really primarily from Irish lore, the sort of Celtic lore. Here's the hot thing about that is like nobody really knows what ancient Celts did for these holidays. Like, for example, Halloween, sometimes called Samhain, Samhain, is sort of regarded as sort of the the beginning of winter or the end of the year. It's sort of framed that way. But whatever ancient Celts did, we really don't know. So, at anytime somebody's like, it's this ancient, contemporary Halloween is this ancient Celtic holiday, it's like, kind of, kind of, kind of, but we really don't know what people did. We have a couple written records, mostly by Romans, and they had political reasons to write what they did, and so we really don't know. But at any rate, if you look at these cross-quarter days, you'll have Halloween, October 31st, in between autumn equinox and winter solstice. And then if you go around to today, you get Emolc, which is spelled Imbolc. And I was just reading an article last night that there's other spellings for it. But this is typically sort of the halfway point between the solstice and the equinox. And it aligns up with our calendar. So these tend to be February 1st, May 1st for Beltane or May Day, August 1st for Lunasa, and then November 1st, October 31st for Samhain, Halloween. Yeah, yeah. Oh, and Yvonne Chiro is in the chat. She just read her chats because like read her book actually. Because yes, like whether this wheel works clockwise or counterclockwise is culturally specific. And so in contemporary American paganism, they often talk about, going Gisel, which means clockwise, or Widdershins, which means counterclockwise in the wheel. On the southern hemisphere, that's flipped. They flip that. Not necessarily going Widdershins or Gisel. Some do, but the Sabbats are flipped. So today we're having Groundhog's Day. Yesterday was Emolc. But in the southern hemisphere, they would be celebrating. I can look at my cheat sheet, Lunasa, which is August 1st. Um, and one other thing to think about this is then how this correlates with other secular holidays or other religious holidays that are more commonly known. So, for example, no, no, no. This text is probably too tiny for anybody to read. Um, but if we think about summer solstice, what sort of common secular holiday lines up with that? Father's Day. What popular holiday lines up with Samhain? Halloween, and so on. And for us today, it's Groundhog's Day. Now, there's like we could go deep into it, but I am promising I'm going to make candles. But one thing that was really interesting about Groundhog's Day is that across Europe, where some of these contemporary pagan ideas about the Sabbats come from, um, there's sort of different traditions of divination to find out what the weather for the rest of spring is going to look like. Basically, that idea of like how much more winter do we have to go through? And if you think about living in like a northern hemisphere country where the winters are really rough and you're running low on food supplies, that's kind of an important thing. So apparently, this idea of looking at some animals and their shadows comes from Germany, and that came to Pennsylvania through the Pennsylvania Dutch, which we talked about them in episode 3 in season 1. And so we have Groundhog's Day, the observation of the groundhog, and if he sees his shadow, then he runs and hides, and then you have 6 more weeks of winter. And if he doesn't see a shadow, like it's overcast, like it is today, at least here in Charlotte, then cool, you don't have as much winter to go through. That's the divinatory system behind that. One thing that I always thought was super fun about Groundhog's Day is where I grew up in like suburban New Jersey. It was rural at the time. Now it's suburbia. But I had these friends who lived up on like a mountain. It was like a New Jersey mountain, a mountain. And every year on Groundhog's Day, they'd have a Groundhog's Day party. And I actually got an email from my friend's parents who are still doing this to this day. And every hour on the hour, we sang the Groundhog's Day song, like something something, gather up your line, gather up your pole. Oh my gosh, I can't remember. I can remember the tune. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. I'm not going to make you guys listen to me sing because I cannot sing. But anyway, it was all about hunting a groundhog and then how you're going to cook up and fry up this groundhog and it's going to be delicious. So it was a groundhog song. And so everybody would grab an instrument, you go to the parlor, everybody would sing this song. And I remember Mrs. Miner, my friend's mom, like as the evening went on, like nobody wanted to do it. Like all the adults were getting drunk, and then all the teenagers and kids were like, we just wanted to go gossip and do our own thing. And she would like come around the house, like, everybody get in the parlor now. We're gonna sing a groundhog song. And we would do that every hour on the hour till midnight, and it was super fun. And it's one of these little things that is a little folk tradition. And apparently, groundhog celebrations, groundhog lodges, like this big thing. I always thought it was just my friends and their family, but apparently this is a thing. All right, so let's make some candles. I'm going to show you guys. Let's see, did I put it in here? Yes, I did. This unhinged picture of my old double boiler. So this is a double boiler I started working with in 1996 from a thrift store. Oh my gosh, I've never had fried groundhog and I really want to try it. Like this is definitely a bucket. I'm not a vegetarian. It's a bucket list thing. And we don't really have that many groundhogs around here in North Carolina, so I need to go back to New Jersey for that. Anyway, so this is super not safe, kids, like super not safe. But basically, one of the things that I do, not every year, but most years, is I'll take the ends of old candles, I'll save them all year long, and then I'll melt them down and make new candles again. Now, I know some magical practitioners who are like, that is the most horrific thing, magically speaking. And I'm like, you know what? It's melty, it's fire, it's fine. Like, I don't know, worse things could happen. But anyway, I am not going to use that double boiler for this demo because it's super cruddy, and dangerous. And like here it is, it's got like a giant thing of wax in it. I did want to show you the candle that I made yesterday. With that, usually I just do dip candles because then you just hang out and you talk and you dip candles. But I made this one, so you can see it's super kind of grody and gray. That's from like all the soot and ashes from like last year's candles because I don't bother cleaning them because y'all, like, I'm not actually a good crafts person. That's just like actually something I'm not good at. But fortunately, I have a lot of friends who are, and so they help me get slightly better every year. But I think it's kind of cool, the little soot dots in it. It just reminds me of the last year. And one of the things is when you pour a mold candle, which is what we're going to do, one of the things that happens is that as the wax contracts, as it cools down, because heat, things expand. As it cools down and it contracts, you get these little like pits in the bottom. And so normally what you do is you wait until like it's cool, and then you make sure that you have wax that's not too hot, but you gradually like sort of fill it up to like level it off. But I was like, you know what? I'm gonna leave this because magical practitioners, like I could totally put like a petition in here or some herbs in there and they'll just sit nice and flat and nobody will be the wiser. So in the spirit of kitchen witchery, as it were, I have some nice bay leaves, which are, depending on the practice and tradition you use, they, most things have multiple correspondences. But I'm going to approach this as sort of a purifying, happy, good beginnings of things, spring. So I'm just going to crunch these guys up and I'm going to put them in the bottom of the pit of my little candle. Great. Watch this action. This is how classy I am. All right. And then I have my 3 stars matches, which just, they're great because in Western esoteric symbolism, the up triangle without a line through it is a symbol for fire, and it has one of these. I don't know if you guys can see it. Kind of see it. Anyway, one of my favorite matches. So let's see. Let's go ahead and do this, and we'll see. I should have probably trimmed my wick a little lower, but so if it goes out, I'll fix it. All right. And of course, fire safety. I feel like I'm obliged to have this here. So hopefully that'll work okay. All right. So instead of doing paraffin candles, so this is a paraffin candle. Instead of doing paraffin candles, I've sort of been gradually transitioning to soy wax candles for various reasons. Um, and here I have some silicon molds. Like I said, I normally dip them, so I have some extra. I'll try doing a dipping. Oh yeah, we got plenty of time. It's only like 10 after 10. We can make all kinds of mess. So I'm going to go ahead and try to do these. Now, there's a couple different versions I have going on here. These are, again, like silicon molds. Sometimes I'll like get like fire, like heat safe glass, and just pour it straight into the glass with the wick in it. But I just decided I'm going to try these this year. I haven't done them before. So let's see, where is this? So I don't know if you guys can see this. There's this little like silver thing on the bottom. I don't know what it's called. Actual candle makers know what it's called. But it's basically there to hold the wick. And this wick already has some wax in it, so it's kind of nice and stiff, which, as you'll see momentarily, is kind of a thing. So there's this version, and because it's silicon, it'll like you can sort of peel it out of it. Usually you want to use silicon release also. I haven't done that because again, I'm a hack, but we're gonna find out. Okay, and then the other kind I have, I just took a needle and thread this wick through a hole in the silicon. So there is a hole. When I made this other guy, a little bit of wax dripped out the bottom, but not enough like to be a problem. So anyway, so I just threaded the wick through it. I just have like a spool that I use for the wick, but you can get individual wicks too. And there we go. And then let's see what kind of mayhem we can make. So I'm going to go ahead and do this one first because I already have a little toothpick sort of set up with this guy. I'm going to try this out. Usually I'm like, it's a real mess when I try to make candles. So I'm going to try to be like organized and clean about it this time. But so I wrap the wick around a little toothpick and just use some like cruddy whatever tape I have around. And I'm going to try to see if this works. All right. So this year, ooh, let's fix this guy. There we go. Um, this year, because I want to be like super professional about things, I went ahead and got a proper double boiler. So double boiler just means you have a pot with water in it. You get it pretty hot, maybe boiling. I don't think you need to go all the way to boiling water for paraffin because it's got a lower melting temperature. And then I have like a thermometer in here, and it's actually a little too hot, but that's okay. Well, like actually, let me just do this. This will be fine. Um, I usually don't use a thermometer, so these are all things. If you don't have them, like just use what you have. Go to the thrift store; it's fine. Um, but I would say if you're doing anything with wax in it, it's probably going to be trashed, and you don't want to use it for eating. So let's go. Actually, this isn't that hot. Here we go. Are you nervous? I'm nervous. All right. So now I'm just going to pour this in here, and we'll see how bad this goes. I'm just going to pour this almost all the way to the top. So if you're using paraffin, you want to let it set for like 2 hours. And then, get paraffin that's like, my friend Palm was telling me it was like 120 degrees. I can't remember. She told me some temperature. I'll put links in the recording of this. Oh no, I'm not recording. Oh no, I am recording. Um, but anyway, so yeah, so there's that. And then let me actually do it like this. But basically, once this is set a little bit more, then I'll go ahead and top off the top. And actually, let me put this guy back for a second. All right. So with this guy, I want the wick to kind of stay straight if possible. So, and this is where my engineering skills sort of fail. But I'm going to try to get this to stay straight. This is the rocket science part of candle making. That's when we talk about Jack Parsons. All right. Um, so then, okay, you can see my safety concerns go downhill as I make more candles. I do this in the morning so that I'm drinking coffee and not alcohol, that's for sure. All right. So then this guy, I'll go ahead and set up a wick holder sort of thing. Sometimes I'll just use like a pencil, like whatever I have around. In fact, I might have to use a pencil. Fortunately, we have like every kitchen in suburban America, we have a jar full of unsharpened pencils. So anytime you need a pencil, it is not sharp. Oh no, the wick came up from the bottom. Okay, well, let's see. I'm okay. This is where the chaos begins, gang. I'm just going to use my pencil and just hope for the best. There we go. Totally. This is absolutely fine. What is what is it I say to my son? Do as I say, not as I do. Something like that. Hmm. It's gonna be totally fine. Okay. Clearly, I need a second pencil. Fortunately, once again, American suburban kitchen full of unsharpened pencils, which we keep on hand for the annual celebration of Candlemas, where we bless all our pencils with candle wax. There you go. Okay. That's working. Yeah. Winning. All right. And finally, I have my last one. Let me see. If I turn this around, look, it's almost like a little still life. I didn't even intend that. All right. Here we go. Chaos ensues. Um, I actually don't really usually dye or scent my candles. I don't mind scented candles. I don't know. I just like the scent of unadulterated fire, I guess. But that sounds really weird, doesn't it? Um, but let me see if I can get this guy working. There we go. But that is something that you can do too, is you can scent them. And my friend Patricia the other day was saying, oh, you can like mix turmeric in it to make like a yellow candle that would also then smell like turmeric. And I have a friend from college, Amitabh, who I remember, yeah, one time, I can't remember how we got into it, but he told me that his mom, he was from, his parents lived in India, and he said that his mom used to say that like turmeric could like cure any wound. And now every time like I see some like science article about like the health benefits of turmeric, I think about my friend Amitabh. All right. There. I think that's adequate, right? All right. So now I'm gonna make a real mess. Well, well, my poor husband's not around to see the damage that I'm doing to his kitchen. I don't cook much. Like I make a few things. I make decent cookies, but mostly I just like eat the food that he makes. So now I'm just going to try to do a dip candle. And what I also need is some water. I'm just going to use this because it's here, because I didn't plan ahead. So actually, and I'll throw some ice cubes in it to make it very extra. Yeah, ice cubes. All right. So the idea with dip candles, this was the first kind of candle I ever made when I was a kid. Our town had like a little fall festival. Again, this was suburban New Jersey, but it used to be kind of rural. And they had candle dipping, which was super fun. That was like the thing that I did. But normally what you can do is you can like wrap this around a pencil or something, or dye it. So, or not dye it, wrap it around something or a stick. So you can get like two I don't know why I tied a knot in it. There was like zero reason for that. So you can get two dip candles at once. So I'm just going to kind of hold it in half and see if this works. This probably won't work. You want a little bit of spacing from them. But you basically just dip it in the wax. I'll just dip the whole thing. My wax isn't very hot anymore. And so it's got a thin veneer of wax on it, and then you dip it in the cold water to cool down the wax. And then I'm going to sort of straighten these out a little bit. This is super messy, which is why it's fun. Because, you know, mess is more fun than other things, I guess. I don't know. I'm saying that as if that's true. All right, I'm going to dip that in the water again because I want to get it cooled down enough so that when I dip it back in the wax, it doesn't just strip off the original wax. That's the tricky part. My water's not really cold enough. Let me see. Here we go. Now we're getting somewhere. Part of this is definitely probably easier with paraffin than soy wax, I'm guessing. I have not done soy wax dip candles before, so we're all learning new things. And I'm just going to grab a paper towel. Um, there's going to be a little water on them. That's not like a big deal, but I remember there's been a couple times I've made dip candles and there's water on it. See, they're kind of stiff now from the wax. I've made dip candles with water on them and like they just get like little water pockets in them. So, okay, so there's that. And then basically you just kind of keep going back and forth, dip in it. Usually you go a lot slower than this. And then periodically you kind of straighten them out, make them look pretty. I realize the problem with this is that I have my glasses on, but I can't see the chat because the chat's too small. Because the UI for this, there's probably an accessibility feature for people with bad eyesight, but I didn't bother to look for it yet. So anyway, that's that's the basic idea of dip candles. Wait, I'm gonna pull my phone up here so I can make sure I can see any chat. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'm like, oh, Palm is here. She correct. Yes, it was 120. Sorry, I'm just catching up on the chat. Yeah, paraffin is a type of wax. It's like most candles that you get um, wherever at the store are paraffin. Um, I don't remember the uh, there's like ecological reasons why soy wax is better. Um, Beeswax is kind of best, but also really expensive. Um, but I'll let other people actually know about that, put in the chat, like why that's the case, because I can't remember. Um, yeah, and like, yeah, the soy is interesting. I don't know. One of the things I like with the soy is that as it melts, you can like put it on your skin. It makes your skin feel really nice, but I don't know if it actually is good for your skin or not. Probably. This is me spreading disinformation. This is why I have a great, amazing team at PRX who um, takes my weird mess of information and actually makes it understandable, which they are the best humans. Let's see. All right, so the time lag on this is kind of amazing because it's like you might put in a, I might say something, you might put something in the chat, and it might take me like a good 3 minutes to like see a comment or thought. But I'm just curious, like, and this is the weird part, if any of you guys have things that you do now or did as a kid for the beginning of February. Like when I was, and because of the delay, I'm just going to go and talk. I remember, besides the Groundhog's Day party that my friends did, um, it was just Groundhog's Day. Like I don't know, it was just like any other day. Um, And I remember when I first started learning about contemporary paganism, this was one of the holidays that was like the hardest for me to grok because I was just like, like, ooh, that's doesn't look safe, does it? Okay, we're gonna, it'll be fine. Um, like Halloween, okay, like that I can kind of get. Um, but or the solstices or the equinoxes. But I was like, February 1st, like, why is that day special? And over the years, I've started to realize, like, oh, this is the time of year that the Lenten roses, like I'm in North Carolina, the Lenten roses start to bloom. It really is like the very, very beginning of spring. So, so those cross quarter days are really sort of the beginnings of seasons. And the solstices and the equinoxes are sort of the height of those seasons. So now, whenever people talk about the start of winter being like December 21st or like the start of spring being March 21st or whatever, I'm like, oh, I get it. Yes, start of spring, secular start of spring, but really it's like spring has been in full swing for quite some time. So it actually makes more sense to me now. But it took me a hot minute. But let's see what else. Oh, yeah, and my little chart about sort of secular and other religious holidays. Um, the August Eve, the August 1st date, and fall equinox were actually two that I had a hard time finding correlating holidays for when I was preparing those graphics. Um, and all I could think of was like start of school. So like I remember for me, August, like the beginning of August was always like, oh no, summer's almost over. Like the glass half empty sort of attitude. And then by September, it's like, oh yeah, like school is starting again or it's in full swing. It like felt very school. So that those are dates that I associate with school, probably because I have a kid. And I'm also in academia, so it's like the school association double whammy. But for the rest of folks, I'm not sure. Let's see. EJ. Oh, okay. Sorry. I'm like totally, y'all probably saw, there's probably like 10 other conversations in there. EJ, Emmanuel in the chat, he is one of the team from PRX, and that's so awesome. I'm so glad you did it. I feel like these are things that are, you know, part of our intangible cultural heritage and are worth exploring. So let's see. Oh. I'm just reading now, like, oh, Aquarius, yeah. Oh, that's the other thing. Yeah, so if you're into astrological magic, and I know there's a number of people on here who are, and so they're gonna like cringe when I give bad information. It's gonna be great, and I'll hear about it later. Um, uh, Spring equinox is also the beginning of the Western astrological calendar with Aries one. And in my video feed, you can see last year I had this grand scheme that I was going to do a deacon walk, which is where you sort of do this meditation on each of the deacons. So every astrological sign has three deacons, so like 10 degrees, right? It's mathy. I won't explain. I won't savage you with my bad math. um, but this is before I got funding for the podcast. So I was like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do this year. It's not going to be a podcast. Anyway, so I started a Deacon Walk and I teach game engine stuff at UNC Charlotte also. And so I was using Unreal Engine. So I was using it as a way of learning Unreal Engine, but then also like doing these sort of visual contemplations of each of the deacons. Anyway, I got like two and a half astrological signs in, and then it totally went off the rails. So at the next spring equinox, I'll go ahead and publish it and put it out online for anybody who wants it. But it's going to be like five or six cool little platforms, and then a bunch of empty ones. So someday I'll come back to it. Yeah, Yvonne. Okay, sorry, I'm like catching up on this. One thing I was reading about too is that I think beginning of February there's a feast day to uh, the Loire Brigitte. I thought I'm like reading this thing, but that's something I don't know about. I'm hoping season three will be able to do an episode about New Orleans voodoo because I think that's a really interesting topic, and I don't know much about it, and I'd like to learn. So. Um, oh, right. I was gonna, that's right. Okay. These are looking really kind of not amazing. So I'm just gonna like stop. Um, they're glorified birthday candles at this point. Actually, they're great birthday candles. I'm gonna change my attitude. This next season of the podcast, I was gonna share some of the things that we're researching for. We're actually doing some of our first official interviews today, and we'll be cranking on those for the next couple of weeks and editing. And again, shout out to the amazing team at PRX. They've been just astounding, astounding, astounding. But yeah, we're doing one episode on the Minoan Brotherhood, um, which okay, hold on. I'm gonna go off camera while I blow my nose, so you guys don't have to like watch me wiping my nose on camera the whole time. There we go. Things you don't see celebrity chefs having to deal with, or maybe you do. I don't know. Anyway, uh, yeah. So one on the Minoan Brotherhood, which is a was a initiatory witchcraft tradition that branched off of Gardnerian Wicca. Um, in like the 60s 70s and or sorry in the 70s 80s and you can tell I'm like still doing the research on this, so I will have my facts straight by the time that the episode comes out for sure. But anyway, it's a really fascinating story because it was started by this guy Eddie Basinski, who's a really just amazing uh, historic figure. So the episode's going to be looking at that tradition and also the life of Eddie Basinski. Um, and then, hey, hi, Saoirse. Um, and then, let's see, this is me trying to remember, jog my memory. Then another one is going to be about legal challenges to leukemia practices. So leukemia, sometimes folks call it Santeria. There's reasons why that's not always the best. Um, but uh, but that one, there was a really famous court case in the 1980s, 1990s over perceptions of animal sacrifice and religious rights. And it was a really, really interesting case, and it ties in with some other court cases that have been about religious liberties, religious expression, and invariably all of them tie back to issues of race and class. So it should be a really interesting episode. And then, oh, okay, wait. Yes. Oh, okay, cool. Sorry, just reading chats. And then, okay, this is me trying to remember all the episodes because I'm like researching them all at once. I'm gonna get the order of them wrong, but there's another one on New Thought. So if you ever see on TikTok or Instagram, like hashtag manifesting or hashtag law of attraction, these didn't just emerge out of nowhere recently. They're actually quite old conceptions that go back to the late 1800s, I believe, maybe mid 1800s. And so we're going to kind of start with social media and the sort of hashtag law of attraction, hashtag manifestation, and kind of unpack that a little bit to see where these ideas come from and sort of where they originate. They come up with The Secret, the book and the documentary, but they date earlier to that, and it connects back to one of our episodes on spiritualism. Actually, it's not really related to spiritualism; they're very, very different things. But it came up in that same sort of like kind of inspired time period of like lots of new religious movements. Um, hey, Vaughn, thank you for coming. Sorry, I just saw this. So she's probably already left, but thank you so much. Um, and let's see. So there's that one, the New Thought. Oh my gosh, I'm blanking on all my episodes. Oh, there's one on the 1883 Code of Indian Offenses, and also ERFA, which is the American Indian Freedom of Religion Act. I think I got that right. But it's looking at legislation that directly impacts Native American spiritual, cultural practices. But we're also going to talk about like the fact that like there's no such thing as like one monolithic Native American religion, right? Like just like any other community or cultural group, there's a vast plurality of religious practices and experiences. Both within communities right down to the individual. So we're gonna unpack that because that's a really interesting history, and it all comes back to colonization. And then let's see, what's the next one? Um, oh gosh, I'm missing one. I'm like blanking on one. It's gonna come back to me. Oh no no. Okay, I remember the other two. Um, Then there's one on giant air quotes Appalachian granny magic. That's a term that kind of gets thrown around in popular discourse. That's got its own sort of complex history and problematics around calling it granny magic or calling it magic at all. And that's been a sort of a current theme in the series. But we're going to be talking to both practitioners and also historians of Appalachia and looking specifically at the really rich cultural confluence that happens in Appalachia and has happened in Appalachia, and some really interesting stories about when the word witch is actually used prior to Gerald Gardner, meaning assertively, like people are owning that language, which is really, really fascinating to me. Um, and then the last one is going to be the Satanic Panic. Yay! Okay, but there's a lot of amazing, amazing podcasts about the Satanic Panic, usually dealing with the West Memphis Street Three, Damien Eccles and the others, or with the McMartin preschool case. But one thing that, I was talking with some folks about that sort of is always a little strange is that most of those podcasts, after they talk about those cases, they say, but it's okay because they weren't real Satanists. And I was like, well, I know real Satanists and they're perfectly lovely people. What's going on here? So it's going to be about Satanism. We're going to look at both rationalist Satanists, so like the Satanic Temple, and also theistic Satanists. So those for whom Satan is a spirit that they have a relationship with in some way, shape, or form. And again, just like every other practice that we've talked about, none of these things are monoliths. They vary by community, they vary by individual. So hopefully, I'm really excited about learning more about all of these topics because I feel like my surface is like only about this deep, and I kind of need to be this deep. So I'm in that learning phase right now. So, but it's really fun, really exciting, and I am super pumped for season 2. Let's see. All right. Well, we don't need to go for a full hour. I don't know. I'll hold out and see if there's any more questions for a second while I tidy up and clean up. I'm gonna reuse this water for something. Hold on. I'm gonna water my plants. I'll be right back. There we go. Beep, beep. See, and this like soy wax is still like liquid, but my paraffin stuff is like, I guess it's a little goopy. But yeah, it's gonna take a while. I don't know how I'm gonna be able to top these guys off if they're still like melty, but it's okay. It's fine. Everything's fine. Okay, that guy's too hot to put on the plants. Don't cook the plants. Oh, okay, let's see. Okay. Amanda was asking, how do I protect myself through all this? Are you ever worried about opening up yourself to negative energy? That's a great question. Yeah. So, I mean, it's probably not a secret. I'm also a magical practitioner. I do different things. Yeah, I mean, I've been a teacher for like over 20 years. So, like being in college classrooms, that's like interacting with a lot of different folks, a lot of folks who have really different complex histories. Some of them are like living through real trauma. Some of them have multi-generational traumas. That's been like my career is just like, spending time with folks in that context and being, in a classroom in front of them, teaching digital media. And I think like, on a, outside of the woo level, on a practical level, I think it's been helpful for me to just remember everybody has feelings and everybody's human and everybody is complicated. And whatever experience I have of a classroom, of a student in a classroom, um, that's only going to be a very, very, very small part of the complexity of that person. I'll never know like more than like whatever the context of a classroom can provide. But the reverse is true too, So in spaces like this, like, you are in my kitchen, digitally speaking. I'm showing you my hacker methods of making candles. Um, I'm trying to be honest about what I do and what I don't know. But of course, the challenge of that is always, 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 you don't know what you don't know. And like, I know that one of the things that I like to try to do is try to figure those things out, which is really hard. Um, so, uh, I think part of it is if I try to be sincere with folks in a public space, I just hope that they can be sincere with me too. Um, there is this sort of idea that if you make yourself vulnerable, yeah, you're vulnerable to hostility. But I really do feel like most folks in the world just want to kind of get through the day, and like be with their friends and their family. Like most folks aren't really wasting a lot of energy trying to, cause harm to others. Certainly it happens. Absolutely it happens. But in spaces like this anybody who's like coming into this, like YouTube chit chat, like, I guess, if somebody really does like wish me harm, there's way more practical ways to do it. But I really, I don't know. I know most of the folks in this chat, and so like, they're friends and colleagues and people I care about, and so yeah, like I'm not super worried about that. Um, I think though, like, it's not a bad idea, like magically to like have a good practice in meditation and have a practice in grounding and centering. Shielding and warding are just good exercises to practice, and if you practice good sort of spiritual and magical hygiene, if you're a magical practitioner, um, just keeping good hygiene, like just like anything else, like brush your teeth, wash your hands before you eat. Like it's similar ideas. But there are way better YouTube channels and podcasts about magical practice than whatever I could give. Let's see. Oh, does the wax take long to set? Yeah. The paraffin doesn't. Like the paraffin is like basically set already. Like the stuff in the can is still a little bit, I can still push it down with my finger, but it sets really, really quickly. So like with a paraffin, like a candle mold this size, I would like probably have them sit for like 2 hours, and then I top them up. These guys are totally still liquid, like completely still liquid. So yeah, I'm not actually sure how long. Maybe the bag says. It's gonna say, it doesn't say. It does tell me to pour it in 75% increments, which I definitely didn't do. I did like 95, but that's okay. Um, yeah. Okay, I'll clean up a little bit more, but then we're at like, 10:43, so I know folks have lives and other things. Let's see. 4 to 6. Oh yeah. Yeah, you guys, like, there are definitely folks on this call who know tons, 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 tons more than I do. So, which I'm really grateful for, because, like, you don't have to learn everything if you surround yourself with people who know everything. Oops, wait. All right. I think I think that's probably about as much cleanup as I can do at this juncture until stuff like cools down. But look, I got birthday candles now. These are like, there's going to be some 4-year-old. I can think I can cut these into four. Some 4-year-old somewhere is going to be like, these are the best candles ever. 4-year-old dog. I was worried the foster dogs would be barking the whole time, but they are napping. There we go. 4 little birthday candles are super goobery. Yeah, William, I was just thinking about putting them in the fridge or putting them in the freezer. Oh yeah. Wait, Palm is answering. Yeah, I whatever Palm says is going to be more accurate than whatever I'm going to say. She's made a lot more candles. But yeah, I would think that like if they cooled down too quickly, it would cause that like sort of tunneling sort of thing to be worse. Hey, so thanks so much for coming, Justin. And yeah, thanks to everybody for showing up. And I'm gonna stop this live stream, I guess. But whoa, gosh, okay. But thanks everybody for showing up and hanging out and asking such great questions. And yeah, have a fantastic Feast of Torches, Candlemas, Groundhog's Day, Imbolc. I feel like I'm missing some holidays in there, but whatever you do today, or if it's just like Friday, happy Friday, happy Friday, happy Venus Day. So, and have a great weekend, and I will see many of you for season two. All right, bye.